Hi, my name's Kelly Johnston and I'm the editor of Time Out UAE Kids. I'd like to welcome you to this brand new series by Time Out UAE Kids called The Talk. Our new weekly series will be covering topics that matter the most to families across the UAE, whilst at the same time answering any burning questions you have from various industry experts. I'd like to take this opportunity to say please do subscribe to our channel and also share and like the video. If you have any questions, then comment below and we will try to get them answered. And if you have any topics that you would particularly like to see covered, again, we'd love to hear from you, so let us know what those are. With schools closed for the remainder of the school year and teachers, students and parents adapting to their new daily educational reality of e-learning and online classes, we thought what better way to kickstart the series than by talking to two local educators about this new way of teaching and learning, and to get some ideas about what we as parents should be doing to help our children get the most out of their home learning programs. So joining us on today's show, we have Rebecca Eldred, who is the assistant head teacher at DES, which is a primary school here in Dubai. And we also have the head of secondary at JES Arabian Ranches, JES Dubai, Mike Waller. Welcome both of you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've got quite a few questions from parents who have sent us in questions about home learning specifically. One of the first things I wanted to start with is motivation. That seemed to be quite a big topic of conversation from a lot of parents. How to keep children motivated. I think in the first week, children were quite excited. It was something new. It was something novel. And now maybe the novelty's worn off a bit and there is a little bit more of the feet dragging to get them to do any of the work. So Rebecca, any tips about what we should be doing?
It very much depends on the household and the child. And I know that's not what parents necessarily want to hear. But what we keep saying to our parents is that they know their children best, and different things will motivate different children. What's really important is that they engage well with their lessons and that they think their lessons are exciting. So talking about the day, planning it in the morning and saying, oh, you've got this today and then you've got that today and that's going to be brilliant. So making them so that you're excited about it as well as a parent. And then you'll have normal motivational things that you might use at home. What I would say is that if your child really isn't motivated one day, then sometimes it is best just to stop and not do it. There's no point having a fight. We all know that happy children learn, and if you're getting yourself into that situation where it's just creating an unpleasant environment at home between the parent and the child, then that's not worth it, and nobody benefits from that. So I would say to judge based on what your child needs. If your child is consistently not motivated, then I would then be a little bit more concerned, maybe make contact with the school, and then have a long conversation with your child and ask them how they want to do it, what they want to do, when they want to do it, and allow them to have a little bit of choice over it, which might motivate them a little bit more.
Okay, and what about secondary children? Because I guess a lot of them are shutting themselves in their bedroom and parents might not know exactly what they're doing. So how do you keep them motivated?
Yeah, look, I think with the older secondary students, it tends to be much more straightforward because they still have end targets. So the year 10s and 12s still know that this time next year they should be sitting exams, so that they keep that in the back of their mind. But I think throughout secondary school, a lot of it comes down to making sure that they are still goal focused. That it's not just about the big goals, but it's also about some of the small things that can be achieved day to day, and really celebrating all of the accomplishments that are achieved. There's a US Admiral of the Navy, I think he is, and one of his speeches is about making his bed in the morning because it creates the sense of accomplishment so that by the time you eat breakfast, you've already achieved something. And I think there's a lot of be said for having that sort of mindset that achieving something, however big or small, is something that we should sort of celebrate and enjoy, because that's sort of really where motivation comes from, that sense of achieving something.
And with things like routines, I know a lot of parents are trying to implement a routine at home to sort of reflect the school day. So with breaks and lunch, is there sort of an average attention span for, say, a Foundation 1 student compared with maybe like a Year 9 student? And how should we be tailoring those breaks into their school day? Maybe we'll start with primary, because I imagine a lot more breaks.
Very much, and it not only differs between age, but also between children and based on what they're doing. So their interest as well, because different children have different likes. So there'll be different things that will engage them to different points. Some young children, so FS1 age, they might not be able to concentrate for more than about 10 minutes or focus on one activity, depending on what it is. And then you might have other children whereby they actually get quite engrossed in something. And then you've got the older ones that might be able to focus for maybe up to an hour, but you might have a child in year 6 who actually doesn't focus for that length of time. And what's really best is those parents to get to know their children and ask them when they want to have their breaks, and to let them have breaks as often as they need to, and also to know that those breaks aren't then more screen time, but actually they break, they eat, they run around, they actually have what would be playtime at school. And that they actually kind of burn off some of that energy and change their focus so that when they come back, they're refreshed.
Yeah, and with the older school children, do they tend to have sort of more online classes? Is that the way it's led? There is more of a structure already integrated within their day rather than parents sort of trying to implement a schedule?
Yeah, that's right, Kelly. I know at Jess and I know at a lot of other schools that we've made a decision to stick with our effectively regular school timetable with some minor adjustments to it to allow for technology and getting off the screen regularly. But ultimately what we want to do is try to create a structure and a routine, because that makes a difference when the young people are faced with the uncertainty of the world around them. So it provides that sort of real foundation for their day, that they're secure in the knowledge they go to school, they'll have support, they'll learn, and so much of their experience is mirrored, which is really important for them at the moment. So I'm a big believer in having that structure. If you're at a school that hasn't gone down that route of that timetable, that doesn't mean you can't create the structure at home either. I would still look to include break time, lunch time, trying to sort of build your lessons into your day even still, so that it creates a sense of routine within the home environment.
Yeah. And by the time the kids go back to school, they'll have been out of school for about 6 months, I think, which is essentially half a year, which is a really long time. Are you expecting to see any sort of additional children needing additional help when they return? Do you think that this absence from being in school is going to have affected? I know it'll be different for every child, but are you expecting to sort of have to put in place some sort of additional support for the children when they return in September?
Oh, sorry, I just was starting to go first, sorry. I think that all schools are thinking about that very carefully, and we are all expecting to have to put something in place. I think it will depend on the children when they come back. I think in particular from a pastoral perspective, I think things like new intakes of FS1 children that maybe haven't been to nursery for 6 months, for example, the way in which that transition into school for those new children happens. And also, I think teachers are very reflective about how much or how little some children are engaging or able to engage with the online learning. Some children are thriving and they love learning in this way, and other children, just because of their character, their personality, how they learn, they aren't enjoying it so much, and therefore they might not be getting as much from it. And that's just people, and that's just humans, and we know that. It's the first time any of us have had to deal with this. What I would say is that I know that anyone that is passionate about school and education will be thinking really carefully about this, and it may well be that some children do need to have some sort of a booster when we first go back, and it might be that they all do.
And I suppose with secondary children, you've got children coming up from year 6 who are used to a primary school environment, who are now obviously entering a much education, and you've got children who were due to sit their GCSEs who are now going straight into the first year of A-levels. So what about those children? Are you expecting sort of to have to provide some additional support for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways to sort of highlight it as being additional support almost diminishes the fact that this is going to be something that everyone has to have. So it won't be additional, it will just be that is the support that we now need to put in place. when it comes for the move from year 6 to year 7, in some ways that's a little bit easier for us to manage, because those students were going to have something different anyway. So they are going to have something new. It's going to be entirely different for them. And so we can sort of make adjustments to the program as necessary to support them. But in some ways, that's one that's relatively straightforward for us. When it comes to the move from 11 into year 12 and upwards, again, yes, there will be different. There'll be some things that they need some extra help with. And it's just a case of figuring that out a little bit over the next sort of 8 or 9 weeks while we're still in school, to make sure that our programs do allow them to hit the ground running. I was talking to my senior leadership team the other day. I don't think it's just about those students, it's about all the students in the entire school community. When we go back to school, I want to put dress shoes on for 6 months. And so it's a case of everyone having to relearn those expectations, rebuild our connections and relationships with people around us, and making sure that we have events as a school community that really support that, and support that sort of integration back into having real contact with real people again.
In primary in particular, some of the classes are shuffled going into a new school year. Do you think that that's going to still happen? Do you think that'll be beneficial? Do you think it'll sort of make the children think, well, I'm definitely in year 3 now when I was in year 2 before, and sort of differentiate between the 2 year groups? Or do you think they need a sort of continuity of things that they know and are used to?
My answer for that one would be that I feel that every school will make the decision that's right for their children. I'm very sure schools probably haven't communicated that yet, or are probably still thinking about it, but I'd like to think that the senior leadership team of every school would.
Excellent. How can parents support their secondary school children? I think with the primary, we're very much sitting next to them, and I'll come on to how much we should be helping them in a minute. But in terms of support, we're very much there. Whereas secondary, how much should mums and dads be sort of getting involved in their secondary school children's home learning?
As much as they can be. I think one of the things that is sort of a misconception about teenagers in particular is that they don't want mum and dad around. And the reality is they do. They just don't know how to ask for it. As they're going through their changes and trying to find their self-identity, they don't want to ask mum and dad for help. But deep down, they want that. They want to be able to talk with mum and dad. They want to be able to share their experiences. And so for parents, it's finding a way to sort of, without sort of pushing and getting over the top about it, sort of asking those questions about how the day was and what they learned and what they enjoyed, and almost at the end of each day having those sort of pre-packed questions that ask the students, or ask their children rather, to be a bit more reflective about the day. So not just, was it okay, sort of get the grunt. What did you learn today? What did you do today? What did you enjoy? And really ask those probing questions. Ask to sit down and see their work with them and read it together. There's bound to be an area where parents have a level of expertise in all sorts of subjects. It might not be maths or science, but it might be history or geography. And it's a case of using those as a way to sort of get in there and talk and compare, what the learning is that's taking place. So I think as much as mums and dads can engage with their teenagers, you might have a bit of resistance to start with. That's normal. But they do want that, and they do really thrive on that, mum and dad from home.
And with the little ones, how much help should parents be giving them?
It's very easy to overhelp, is what I'd say with the primary children. And one of the key learning skills that primary schools have to instill in children and support them with all the way through primary is independence. So, and I know that lots of schools are saying to parents, let them be independent, but I know that looks very different when they're at home. Some strategies I would share would be to start the day with looking at what that schedule is for the day, and then discussing that through with your child, planning in when your breaks are going to be, and then also remind them that when they're at school, they don't have continuous access to the teacher. The teacher will deliberately leave them when there's times when they're working on their own, and will want them to struggle and to overcome challenges themselves, or to then seek help and learn how to do that and to access resources. So as a parent, depending on how old your child is, what I would do is I would tell them that you'll be available between different times of the day, particularly if you're working. So share your schedule with them and tell them when you're then free to help them. and what they need to do if they get stuck. So discuss their strategies. Who are you going to ask? What can you do? Could you move on to the next lesson and come back to it? Are you able to contact your teacher? I think what parents are getting, some parents getting muddled with, is trying to become the teacher, when actually they are just the parent, and your children, or the children, need you just to be mum. They need you to be dad, because right now everyone is feeling the pressure of the fact that everything is different. So really the parents need to continue to be that emotional support and not the teacher. So what I would do is try very, very carefully and draw a bit of a line in terms of how much you are and are not going to support, and share that with your child, and agree it.
I think most parents will confess to having quite a short fuse, whereas teachers seem to have a large amount of patience. Are there any tips of how parents can encourage their children without being sort of dictators and ending up shouting at them? Are there any tips and advice you can give to parents to help them be more encouraging, rather than sort of taking that we need to get this done by 2 o'clock, we're running out of time, hurry, that sort of thing?
I think that if you create the situation where it's very stressed, then it's not going to be healthy for anybody. I think if you're having to, for want of a better phrase, nag at your child to do it, then at that point, that's when the parent then needs to stop. The teacher and the child are very used to having those conversations around learning. So whatever work it is that then is uploaded or produced or comes from it can be a conversation that the child has with the teacher. And I think the parent needs to, in my personal advice would be that the parent needs to remember that they are mum or dad, and it's not worth the fight if it's going to up.
What about secondary children? They're quite reluctant for parents to get involved, as you said earlier.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, picking up on that point that Rebecca made, that mum and dad should be mum and dad still. Their job's not to be the teacher here, and in a sense have confidence that the teacher will pick up if something hasn't been done. They'll pick up if the work hasn't been done to the best of its ability as well, and that we will follow up on that. We'll be the ones that, we're engaging with your child day to day, or we'll be messaging home to say, hey, here's a concern that we might have.
If I can add on to that, if you are the parent, then your emotional well-being is actually almost more important in this phase at the moment, because you are also then having to support the other people in the household and the children. And I think that parents need to focus on making sure that they are modelling breaks themselves, they're modelling talking, they're modelling having problems and overcoming and having struggles and making mistakes and asking for help as well, so that the children know that that's perfectly normal.
I think a lot of parents are concerned about having to go back to work potentially in the next few weeks with things opening up, and leaving children to have to work independently or potentially under the supervision of a nanny or a helper. Again, I know that's going to be different for any child depending on their mentality and their attitude, but any tips about how mums can go and dads can go back to work with a bit more of peace of mind?
Hopefully they will be in a bit more of a routine by then. For the first couple of weeks it was exciting, I think, for the children, and then there was all the wobbles of everyone learning their way and finding their way through the technology and the new style of doing things. But I think that the children are getting much more into a routine and a system for being more independent, and I think that as children and schools are becoming better at it as the weeks go on, I hope that by that point it would be a little bit easier for everybody.
I think from a secondary perspective, that's not as big a fuss for us ultimately, because the children can be left to get on with it. So we don't sort of have that same concern from a school point of view. Obviously, there's concerns at home associated with childcare. But the other thing as well is the teachers know who's in the lesson, who's not. They know who's doing the work, who's not. They know who's really trying hard and who's not. And so with information, we can make contact home as well. We say to our parents that if you don't hear from us, everything is fine for a start, but we'll certainly be contacting you if you've got concerns, and that will apply whether that's today, next week, or when work reopens for people. We'll always be following up if there's any concerns.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, final word, I guess, is what would you both say to reassure parents that actually this is all going to be okay? Come September, everything's going to be fine. The children are going to be fine. We're all going to be fine.
My final word would be that everyone is just trying their best, and that we know you are, and we are just trying our best as well, and I'm very sure the children are too, and that actually our expectations before all of this happened of our lives and how we did things day to day, we just need to lower them a little bit, and in terms of ourselves and what we're expecting from other people, and just remember that we're all human and we're all just trying our best, and in the end, of course, we'll all come out of this. Teachers, as I said, are very, very prepared to teach children of varying abilities, and I think that once we get back to school, and schools put things in place to support the children, as Mike and I had shared, I think that everyone will breathe a sigh of relief.
I think for me, it's just a case of, you know what, take a breath and it'll be fine. We will get through this, and we'll get through this together. As a school, this is what we do. We constantly adapt, we constantly update our plans to match the needs of the students that are coming through, and we're doing that all the time now. So, you know, wherever they are in the curriculum at the moment, that's matters that they're safe, they're healthy, that they're maintaining the connection with their families, both here and abroad, that they're really looking after themselves, and that we'll make sure that the education side of things is taken care of. And when we see them on campus in September, we'll be ready for it, and we'll make sure that they get to where they need to be.
Thank you so much for watching our first episode of The Talk. Just to reiterate, we would love to hear from you, so please do like, share and comment below. If there's any topics that you would like to see covered or any questions you have, please do comment in the comment box underneath.